Paradise Lost by John Milton is one of the most ambitious and unsettling epics in English literature. With its grand cosmic scale, morally complex characters, and radical ideas about free will, rebellion, and human nature, the poem continues to fascinate and disturb readers. Today we'll explore 20 of the weirdest, most intriguing facts about Milton's masterpiece, from its unusual narrative choices to its strange literary and theological experiments. Let's go. Fact 20. Satan as sympathetic hero. One of the weirdest facts of Paradise Lost is Milton's depiction of Satan. Though traditionally the villain, he is presented with intelligence, eloquence, and charisma, often evoking sympathy despite his rebellion against God. Readers are drawn into his internal struggles, ambitions, and frustrations, creating a strange tension between admiration and moral judgment. The weirdness lies in this deliberate ambiguity. Milton crafts a character who is morally reprehensible, yet psychologically compelling. Satan's speeches, filled with rhetorical brilliance and philosophical reflection, invite readers to empathize with a figure who embodies pride, rebellion, and tragic flaw. This duality challenges traditional notions of heroism and villainy, making Paradise Lost a psychologically complex and morally unsettling text. It is rare for a literary work, especially a 17th century epic, to create such a morally ambivalent protagonist who dominates the imagination and invites both admiration and condemnation. Fact 19. Blank verse. Experimentation. Milton chose to write Paradise Lost entirely in blank verse, abandoning rhyme for unrhymed iambic pentameter. This unusual choice was controversial at the time, as rhyme was considered the proper form for epic poetry. Milton argued that blank verse allowed greater flexibility, dignity, and freedom of expression, but it also created challenges for rhythm, comprehension, and memorability. The weirdness lies in how this formal experiment shapes the reading experience. The poem's long, flowing sentences mirror the vast cosmic scope of the story, but also make it psychologically demanding. Readers navigate complex syntax, embedded clauses, and extended metaphors, producing a disorienting yet mesmerizing rhythm. Milton's formal innovation contributes to the poem's otherworldly quality, emphasizing the grandeur and complexity of the themes, while simultaneously forcing readers to grapple with unusual linguistic structures rarely seen in epic poetry before his time. Fact 18. Radical political ideas. Milton's personal political beliefs subtly permeate Paradise Lost. A supporter of the English Commonwealth and critic of monarchy, Milton infuses his narrative with ideas about liberty, authority, and rebellion. Satan's insurrection against God can be read as a complex reflection on tyranny, freedom, and personal ambition, making the poem strangely political as well as theological. The weird aspect is the interplay between religious epic and political allegory. Readers are confronted with the uneasy question: is Satan's rebellion morally reprehensible, or does it reflect a legitimate desire for freedom against absolute authority? Milton's embedding of radical political thought within a biblical framework creates intellectual tension, giving the poem multiple layers of meaning. The reader experiences both the cosmic battle of good and evil and the human struggle over power, governance, and personal autonomy, making the text unusually rich and psychologically provocative for a 17th century epic. Fact 17. Cosmic scale ambiguity. Paradise Lost operates on an immense cosmic scale, describing battles between angels, the creation of the world, and the fall of humanity. Yet Milton deliberately leaves many aspects ambiguous, such as the nature of Satan's army, the geography of heaven, and the mechanisms of divine intervention. This ambiguity is weird because it defies the conventional expectation of epic clarity. Readers are simultaneously awed and disoriented, forced to imagine vast, incomprehensible spaces and events. Milton's choice emphasizes the limits of human understanding and mirrors the psychological tension of awe, fear, and fascination with the divine. The cosmic scale and lack of resolution for certain details create a sense of both grandeur and unease, making the epic a uniquely immersive and mentally demanding experience. Fact 16. Complex female figures. Although women are not central in classical epics, Milton gives Eve a significant and psychologically complex role. Her curiosity, reasoning, and emotional depth make her a strangely ambiguous figure, both sympathetic and culpable in the fall of humanity. The weirdness lies in how Milton balances moral responsibility with emotional realism. Eve's character is intellectually and emotionally vivid, engaging readers in debates about agency, innocence, and influence. Unlike typical passive female figures in early modern literature, Eve exhibits introspection, doubt, and moral reflection. This complexity challenges traditional epic conventions and creates a subtle, unsettling tension. Readers must grapple with her humanity, her mistakes, and her enduring symbolic significance within the grand cosmic narrative. Fact 15. Inverted heroic focus. Unlike most epics, Paradise Lost places its narrative emphasis on a fallen figure rather than a traditional hero. Satan, rather than Adam or God, dominates much of the action, drawing readers into his perspective and emotional complexity. This inversion creates a strange tension as the antagonist occupies the central narrative space, challenging traditional epic hierarchy. The weirdness lies in how Milton manipulates sympathy and narrative engagement. By exploring Satan's pride, ambition, and inner turmoil, readers experience a morally ambiguous journey. The focus on a rebellious figure blurs the line between villain and tragic hero. Milton's deliberate choice destabilizes expectations, encouraging readers to reflect on morality, ambition, and charisma in a profoundly unsettling way, making the poem a uniquely complex exploration of character and perspective. Fact 14. Ambiguous moral lessons. Paradise Lost presents moral lessons that are intentionally complex and ambiguous. While the poem portrays obedience to God as virtuous and rebellion as sinful, it also humanizes Satan and explores the motives behind disobedience, raising unsettling questions about free will and justice. The weird aspect is that moral clarity is never fully achieved. Readers are left to grapple with conflicting ethical perspectives, making the work intellectually and emotionally demanding. This ambiguity is unusual for epic poetry, which typically offers straightforward moral instruction. Milton's choice forces readers to engage actively with ethical dilemmas, understanding that moral complexity mirrors real human experience rather than providing comfort or simple resolution. Fact 13. Dense layered language. Milton's prose is notoriously dense, filled with classical allusions, inverted syntax, and elaborate metaphors. His unusual word order and complex imagery can make passages difficult to parse, requiring careful, deliberate reading. This linguistic style is weird because it simultaneously elevates the poem and challenges the reader. The dense language mirrors the vastness of the cosmic themes and the psychological intensity of characters, creating a mental tension that draws readers into a heightened, almost disorienting experience. The effect is both awe-inspiring and unsettling, demonstrating how form and content work together to create a uniquely immersive epic. Fact 12. Satan's poetic brilliance. Milton endows Satan with extraordinary rhetorical and poetic skill, allowing him to speak with persuasive elegance and emotional depth. His speeches often blend philosophical reasoning with poetic flourish, creating a character who is compelling, articulate, and dangerous. The weirdness is that literary brilliance is associated with evil. Milton invites readers to admire Satan's intellect while recognizing his moral corruption. This duality generates cognitive dissonance, producing fascination and discomfort simultaneously. It is unusual in epic literature to craft a morally reprehensible figure whose linguistic and intellectual mastery dominates the narrative, creating one of the most psychologically complex villains in literary history. Fact 11. Time-bending narrative paradise. Lost manipulates time in unconventional ways. Milton shifts between pre-creation, the fall of Lucifer, and the temptation of Adam and Eve, blending chronological sequences with reflective digressions. The weird factor is that temporal disorientation mirrors the epic's thematic complexity. Readers experience simultaneity, past, present, and cosmic scale intertwine, producing an almost dreamlike sense of scope. This narrative structure challenges conventional storytelling, requiring mental engagement to follow cause, effect, and philosophical reflection simultaneously. The manipulation of time creates a unique cognitive experience, heightening the poem's otherworldly and unsettling quality. Fact 10. Blurring divine perspective. Milton occasionally allows glimpses into divine reasoning, yet these moments are indirect and filtered through poetic language. God's omniscience and omnipotence are asserted, but the poem often leaves his motives mysterious or open to interpretation. The weirdness is the tension between omnipotence and human-like emotion. Milton presents God's plan as perfect, yet allows ambiguity in moral and psychological terms. Readers are left pondering the limits of understanding divine action, experiencing both awe and uncertainty. This subtle ambiguity creates a strange, intellectually challenging atmosphere, emphasizing that even within a supposedly perfect cosmic order, perception and interpretation remain complex and unsettling. Fact 9. Hell's detailed geography. Milton invests considerable attention in depicting hell, imagining a vast, fiery, chaotic realm with its own geography, hierarchy, and torment. The description is both imaginative and terrifying, blending myth, classical references, and symbolic meaning. The weirdness lies in the specificity applied to a non-physical realm. Hell is depicted almost like a real place, complete with mountains, lakes, and architectural structures. This detailed visualization of suffering and chaos creates a psychologically intense experience, blending theological allegory with imaginative world-building, producing a strange combination of horror, fascination, and philosophical reflection. Fact 8. Eve's intellectual depth. Eve is portrayed as intellectually curious, emotionally expressive, and morally reflective. Milton gives her reasoning skills, personal agency, and the capacity for doubt, qualities that make her psychologically complex. The weird aspect is that she challenges gender expectations of the 17th century. Rather than being purely passive, she engages in debate, reflection, and decision-making, highlighting themes of responsibility, autonomy, and moral complexity. This unusual depth allows readers to explore the interplay of knowledge, temptation, and choice, making Eve a strangely modern and intellectually provocative character within a classical epic framework. Fact 7. Blending classical mythology. Milton incorporates classical mythology alongside biblical narrative, invoking figures such as the Titans, chaos, and allegorical personifications. This unusual fusion creates a hybrid mythos, blending Judeo-Christian theology with Greco-Roman storytelling. The weird factor is how seamlessly these traditions coexist. Readers encounter a poem that is simultaneously biblical, philosophical, and mythological. Milton's blending of traditions produces an epic that defies simple categorization, offering rich layers of symbolic meaning and imaginative complexity that challenge conventional narrative boundaries and create a profoundly unusual literary experience. Fact 6. Philosophical digressions. Throughout the poem, Milton interjects long philosophical digressions about free will, fate, knowledge, and morality. These passages sometimes interrupt narrative flow, yet they are central to the poem's thematic depth. The weirdness is that narrative and philosophical reflection are inseparable. Readers are forced to engage with abstract reasoning while following the story, creating a mentally immersive experience. This combination of narrative, argument, and allegory produces a strange, intellectually challenging reading rhythm that heightens the epic's psychological and imaginative impact. Fact 5. Satan's psychological realism. Milton presents Satan with human-like psychology, ambition, envy, pride, and doubt. Though supernatural, he is motivated by recognizable human emotions, making him relatable yet terrifying. The weird factor is that evil is rendered psychologically credible. Milton transforms a cosmic villain into a character whose internal conflict mirrors human experience. This blend of theology, narrative, and psychological insight produces a morally unsettling tension, compelling readers to consider the nature of rebellion, desire, and conscience. Fact 4. Cosmic allegorical layers. The poem operates on multiple allegorical layers simultaneously: spiritual, moral, political, and philosophical. Actions of angels and humans symbolize broader themes of authority, free will, and temptation. The unusual aspect is the density of meaning. Readers navigate literal events, theological symbolism, and philosophical reflection simultaneously. This layering creates a strange reading experience where narrative, allegory, and existential inquiry intermingle, producing a complex psychological and intellectual landscape. Fact 3. Innovation. In epic form, Milton redefines the epic genre, blending classical structure, biblical narrative, and theological argument. He experiments with narrative voice, time, and character focus in ways that were revolutionary for 17th century literature. The weird factor is that the poem is epic yet deeply introspective. Milton prioritizes thought, argument, and moral tension alongside action. This unusual combination produces a reading experience that is intellectually demanding, psychologically complex, and aesthetically striking, influencing centuries of literature. Fact 2. Free will obsession. The poem obsessively explores free will. Characters act, rebel, and choose within a divinely preordained universe, creating tension between autonomy and cosmic order. The weirdness lies in the philosophical paradox. Readers are confronted with the unsettling question: how can humans exercise genuine freedom if destiny is absolute? Milton presents this tension vividly, making the exploration of free will both intellectually provocative and morally disorienting, a central source of the poem's psychological power. Fact 1. Humanity reflected eternally. At its core, Paradise Lost reflects humanity's eternal struggles: pride, temptation, ambition, and moral responsibility. Adam and Eve's fall and Satan's rebellion become mirrors of human psychological and ethical experience. The weird factor is that cosmic events are rendered deeply personal. Milton transforms grand theological and cosmological conflict into intimate reflection on human nature. Readers encounter an epic where the universe itself resonates with the inner life of consciousness, creating a profoundly unsettling yet intellectually illuminating experience. Closing remarks. Paradise Lost remains one of literature's most ambitious and intellectually demanding epics. It offers no easy answers and provides no comfort. The poem forces readers to confront difficult truths about rebellion, free will, and human nature. Whether you find it inspiring or unsettling, Milton's refusal to simplify his vision stands as a remarkable achievement in English literature. It is a work that demands something from its readers, not mere entertainment, but deep engagement with some of the most profound questions about morality, choice, and cosmic order. If you've watched this entire video, you've explored 20 of the weirdest and most fascinating aspects of this literary masterpiece. Thank you for watching.